Hey everybody, it's Ricardo Gorski, the founder of Tax.One, and in this video I'm going to talk about one of the best countries to retire in the European Union. And yes, I know there are many options: Spain, Portugal, France, many beautiful countries where one could retire in. But in this video I'm going to talk about a very interesting option, and that is Cyprus. So if you are thinking about retiring in a beautiful country in the European Union, then this video is definitely for you, because I'm going to present you and talk a little bit about Cyprus and why I think it may even be the best option. So let's start right away with the lifestyle, and for that we have to start with the fact that Cyprus has over 300 sunny days. I absolutely love the climate here because the winters are very short. It is just 2 to maximum 3 months, January to March, where it is still totally acceptable, a very warm 15 degrees Celsius, and even during peak summer, July and August, it is not getting too hot, where a retiree, an older person, would need to be worried to not go outside, because even if it is a very hot day during July or August, for example, which, don't get me wrong, it can get definitely hot here, but it is still not as hot as, let's say, Dubai. And also, if you see that today it is going to be 38 degrees Celsius, which is like on the upper end, then you just stay at home, you turn on the AC, and you are in the perfect temperature at home and not at risk of a too high temperature. And in addition to that, Cyprus in general is one of the safest countries in the European Union, with one of the lowest crime rates, robbery rates, homicide rates, and basically non-existing sexual offenses, which is obviously very important for you yourself, but also if you have family members. For example, if I have a daughter, I personally would feel very safe letting her use a public transport, for example, or just go out on a Friday or Saturday evening with their friends, and having the certainty that nothing will happen to them just because Cyprus is so safe across the board. Next is the fact that Cyprus is an English-speaking island, which obviously makes it much easier to live here on a day-to-day basis if you are a non-Greek speaker, because yes, the local language of the Cypriots is actually Greek Cypriot, but almost all of them speak English, even in the villages, just because Cyprus used to be a British colony, which means that we still have a lot of British systems, a British infrastructure here, and everyone, even in the government offices, in the restaurants, in the cafes, speaks English, which makes it very easy to integrate within the community here. And now the next point is obviously very important for older people, and that is the private healthcare here in Cyprus, which is absolutely top tier. And fun fact, it is so good here in Cyprus that a lot of British individuals actually get flown into Cyprus from the UK just because they get treated not just better here in Cyprus, but also much faster compared to the UK. Because I myself am German, and I still remember in Germany needing to wait multiple weeks to sometimes even months just for a doctor to take a look at something that maybe even be urgent. But here in Cyprus there are a lot of experienced doctors, senior professors that studied and learned abroad and then came back to their home country Cyprus here, and they didn't want to do nothing, so they work in the local hospitals here, have absolutely high-class degrees, and they don't have a long waiting list like in London or in Berlin or Frankfurt, for example. And in order to use many of those top-tier healthcare services and amenities and facilities, you don't even need an overpriced, exaggerated private insurance like in Central Europe, for example, where you're paying hundreds of euros every month without even getting the service that you would expect. Here in Cyprus, you pay for the National Health Service via dividends, which is a very small contribution, which we're going to talk about later on when we talk about taxes. But just recently, for example, I had some problems with my shoulders because I go to the gym very often and I lift a lot of heavy heavy weights. And I realized that my shoulder starts hurting when I do specific exercises. So I went to my general doctor, who took a look at it first and told me that it generally looks very fine, but we need to do some further scans. So we first did an X-ray scan, and then after looking at the X-ray and seeing that my bone structure is still completely intact, we also had to do an MRI. And after receiving the results of my MRI, I got a specific reference letter for a specific doctor who is specialized in trauma as well as osteopathy. I hope I pronounced it right. But what I'm trying to say is that I had this valuable chain of doctors and scans and just multiple different opinions. And then this doctor actually diagnosed that I have some inflammation within my shoulder. And now I'm going to a physiotherapist where I'm doing some specific exercises in order to be able to get rid of this pain within a few weeks. And this is like a very, very valuable service that I received. And now you can guess what I paid for all of this. And the answer is just 10 years. So I paid 10 euros to see multiple doctors, to get multiple scans. And in Germany, all this would just be so much hassle. My mom is having some problems now with her teeth, and she's just telling me horror stories about how unhelpful the doctors are there, how much extra costs she has and all that. So when it comes to healthcare, Cyprus is definitely very, very good. And the same applies to living costs, because there are rumors that Cyprus is getting more and more expensive, but everywhere in the world it is getting more expensive due to inflation. And I would actually argue that the living costs here in Cyprus, in order to live an amazing lifestyle close to the sea, many activities to do, wine tastings in the mountains, amazing hikes by the coastline, going for walks, going to amazing local traditional restaurants and tavernas and all that actually doesn't cost that much money. When I first came to Cyprus, my monthly fixed costs were just about 1,000 euros, rent included, and I lived totally fine here. So it obviously depends on your standards, what kind of house you want to rent, what kind of car you want to drive, and what kind of food and how much you want to eat. But the living costs here in Cyprus are definitely affordable if you live a very normal life. And talking about prices and houses, I would actually argue that you can find a dream house, which is very relevant for a person that wants to retire, for a very fair price here in Cyprus. And we're going to talk more about properties in a minute, but my main point is that for less than €1 million, you can find a 3, 4, maybe even 5 bedroom, absolute stunning, custom, bespoke villa with a pool, rooftop, unobstructed sea view, privacy, alarm systems and all that, maybe even a concierge service if you live in a community style project with other villas surrounding you. All that can cost you less than €1 million, and actually buying such a property is also a great investment, which you can then inherit to your kids, for example. And by the time they inherit your property, the value went up in value to maybe 1.2, 1.3 million euros, which they can then sell for a profit or maybe even live inside themselves. But that's for later on. First, we have to talk about you and your lifestyle here in Cyprus, and you can expect a very slow and calm and healthy lifestyle. I already talked about the things I do. I regularly go to the harbor, I go to the mountains. There are amazing hiking spots here. We have natural wonders, we have beaches, we have lakes, we have waterfalls. There is just so much to see. We have blue lagoons, we have old villages, we have so much culture and tradition here in Cyprus that it literally never gets boring here. And I always say that living in Cyprus is like the European summer lifestyle. No matter where in Europe, during summer it's definitely beautiful there, but the summer in Europe is very short, but not here in Cyprus. Cyprus is geographically the most eastern country on the map, and we have this European summer lifestyle throughout most of the year. And so we talked a lot now about the life here in Cyprus and why I think that Cyprus might be the perfect option for you. But now we have to talk about the facts, and that is, if you want to stay longer than 90 days in the country Cyprus, you need to go through an immigration process. And for EU citizens, that is actually rather simple, because we just apply for your yellow slip, which is the permanent residency here in Cyprus for European citizens, and then you can stay in Cyprus indefinitely. But if you are a non-EU citizen, if you come from from outside of the EU, like the UK for example, since Brexit, then the yellow slip does not apply to you unless you are married to a EU citizen. Then there is a specific route that we can also go for you. But if you are completely non-EU, you have no strings to the EU, you have no European passport, then you need the pink slip. And it is literally a physical pink document, which is the temporary residency for you, which can be renewed up to 3 times. That means you can live for 3 to 4 years here in Cyprus under the pink slip, and then it is time to apply for the permanent residency, which you can get by investment. Cyprus offers a PR by investment program where you need to buy an off-plan property, newly built property from a developer here in Cyprus for at least 300,000 euros plus VAT in order to be eligible for the PR card. When you buy the property, then you will get granted the permanent residency here in Cyprus, and you will have the exact same benefits as a yellow slip holder. Now, that about the permanent residency. That just gives you the right to stay in Cyprus and potentially even work here, but this is getting a little bit more complex, and also most retired people are actually not interested in working anymore. They just want to receive their income via their investments or their pensions, whatever it is. And this is why we now also have to talk about taxes. First of all, just because you have the PR, it doesn't mean that you are a tax resident yet, because you also need to stay in Cyprus for at least 183 days in order to be eligible for the tax residency. Yes, there is also the 60 days tax residency option, but it is not really relevant, just because of the fact that I assume that most people that want to retire here in Cyprus and potentially even buy a property here, they want to spend most of their time here. So it is much easier to just spend 6 months per year in the country, and then you will get your tax residency status here. When you have your tax residency status here in Cyprus, then you can also get the non-dom status, which is different to the tax residency. The tax residency basically just means you will be liable for Cyprus taxes, which are obviously more favorable than most taxes in the West. But if you have your tax residency status, then you can also get the non-dom status, which is like a status on top of your tax residency, which means you are fully exempt from taxes on your dividends and interest income. This is possible under the non-dom status. You basically pay 0%. However, if you remember earlier, I said that you're paying a small contribution to the NHS, which is exactly that, because actually you're paying 2.65% up to 180,000 euros, which equals to 4,770 euros in yearly contributions to the National Health Service for receiving the health services here in Cyprus, which in my opinion is definitely a fair trade. Then number 4 is the flat tax on pension income. You pay a flat 5% tax on your worldwide pension income that is coming probably from your home country or from the country where you worked most of your life. Now, on top of that, we also have the benefit of 0% inheritance tax here in Cyprus, meaning if you're coming with your family to Cyprus, you retire here and something happens to you, then there is no inheritance tax as per Cyprus law, which means that all of your assets, your cash and your net worth will be claimable by your spouse or children or the nearest family member. In the case of your family, children not coming to Cyprus with you, there is also the option of setting up a Cyprus International Trust for asset protection reasons, because this Cyprus International Trust, when you put your assets into the CIT, which is short for Cyprus International Trust, then after 2 years, the ownership to those assets, which can be anything from precious metals over stocks, over crypto to immovable assets, you will not be the owner anymore after 2 years of settling the assets into the trust, but the trust will be it. And if the beneficiaries will be your children, it doesn't matter where their tax residency is, because the Cyprus International Trust actually bypasses all probate and inheritance taxes, laws, rules, policies, and all of it will be granted to your children tax-free as well. If that is something that you're interested in, make sure to reach out to us on Tax.One and we will explain everything to you in an individual consultation call. Now first, let's talk about the 5% tax regime, which is obviously interesting for every retired person that receives pension income, because as explained earlier, the 5% tax actually applies to all foreign pension income outside of Cyprus. You literally pay flat 5% on everything over 5,000 euros per year without a cap, and any further income that you receive via properties, for example, rental income, other investments that you make, dividends, side businesses, maybe you still run a business, whatever it may be, this income will then be taxed via personal income tax or even via a company, because you could also theoretically incorporate a company here in Cyprus and pay the low corporate tax rate of 15%. And all of that is 100% legal and compliant, of course. Now, one of the questions you may ask yourself now is, okay, Ricardo, but where should I retire? I took a look at Cyprus, maybe I've even visited in the past, and my best places to retire in Cyprus are number one, Paphos, where I live myself. I just love the calm, the greenery here, the sea views are absolutely stunning. If you take a look at Paphos, it is an elevated city, so no matter where you live, you have an unobstructed sea view and you just enjoy absolutely stunning sunsets every night. We also have a very big German and British community here, and I just love the people here. It is just a vibe here. I love to go out. We have this small city effect here, even the small island effect in general. Cyprus, like everyone knows each other, and it is just so peaceful and calm here. Then we also have Limassol, which is like the big city life. We have a more premium lifestyle there for sure, more expensive brands that you can shop there. We have more premium restaurants there, fine dining options. We have the marina, which with yachts. We have a big Russian community and just like big hotel names like Four Seasons and all that, which doesn't really exist here in Paphos yet. Paphos is more down to earth, and Limassol is more this international business hotspot. Definitely more business going on there, definitely busier, 5 times the population, and you just have to visit both and decide for yourself. But in my eyes, Paphos is definitely number one. And also Larnaca is an option that is worth mentioning. It has access to the airport, so if you were to travel a lot and you need to regularly fly to big other airports, then Larnaca has more options to fly to Dubai, etc. But Paphos also has an airport, don't get me wrong, it just doesn't have as many slots as the Larnaca airport. Living in Larnaca is even more affordable than Paphos. It's definitely one of the cheapest cities here, next to Nicosia, which is not even worth mentioning, because if you live in an island, I don't understand why you would want to live in the middle of the island without access to the beach. Anyway, Larnaca is a flat city, so it is not as elevated, or not elevated at all, like Paphos, for example. So if you live in the second or third row, you don't have a sea view anymore, which to me is not really that attractive. It's like a very gray city in general. There is not much nature going on. They have the salt lake, which is dry in summer, but no one swims in the salt lake. Don't get me wrong, I don't want to hate on Larnaca, I just never really liked it there. Anyway, then we also talked about properties, which is very important, because most people that want to retire don't want to pay rent. They actually want to own their property for themselves, for their family, for people coming over. And here in Cyprus, there are so many options to live by the sea. You can buy an apartment, you can buy a penthouse, a detached house, a semi-detached house, a community project, as said earlier. You can find something completely bespoke, something super luxurious, medium, or something very affordable. So I mentioned earlier that you can find an absolute dream house for less than €1 million, but you can also find a very cheap apartment for 200,000 euros. So no matter what your requirements are, we are definitely able to help you find your perfect property. For that, we actually have a partnered company which is called Offplan.One. So if you go to your web browser and you type Offplan.One, you're able to fill out our short questionnaire there, so that we are able to find the perfect property for you. Then, depending on your requirements, we're able to find something close to hospitals, pharmacies, golf resorts, and many more, spa facilities, amenities, whatever your hobbies are, whatever is important to you, we will definitely be able to find something for you. And if you buy from our partner company Offplan.One, then you will also join our community as an off-plan investor, and you will be sitting on table with other off-plan investors. You will join our meetups, our gatherings, which also helps you find friends or maybe even business partners or people that spend time with you in general, which also makes it much more easier to integrate in a new country. Then just another short benefit: if you buy with Offplan.One, we are also able to completely cover all lawyer costs in relation to the sales agreement, which will save you a few €1,000. So definitely make sure to reach out to us on Tax.One, where we will guide you through every step. We offer a full relocation support. We will take a very good look at your current situation. We will prepare an exit strategy to leave your current country completely correctly. We'll make sure that you will be having no liabilities towards your current country anymore, and you can fully relocate without a headache here to Cyprus, also with your partner, with your kids. We will set up your tax residency, we will apply for your PR, we will manage your accounting and tax filings, and we will also support you with finding the perfect property for you, whether it is buying or also renting. We are a one-stop shop when it comes to Cyprus. And if this video was helpful for you, definitely make sure to subscribe to the channel. If you have any questions, leave them down below. I will answer every single one of them. And again, if you want to speak to us, reach out to us on Tax.One or Offplan.One if you want to talk specifically about off-plan real estate investments. But in any case, that's enough for today. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.